Hey guys, I love seeing all the comments on my webpage on what you guys have learned. It is super cool to see how God has designed our bodies, especially our hearts, to work the way that they work. If you think about it this way, most of you commented you didn't know that your heart could beat 100,000 times in a day, and that's on average. So some is going to be a little bit more than others, especially if you're exercising. Remember, your heart rate's going to be up a little bit higher. When you're sleeping, it's down lower. But let's see if you can do the math. If that's just one day, 100,000, let's say for 7 days a week, or let's even say for a year, and then let's average the average adult's lifespan to 80 years or so. So you have 100,000 beats a day times 80 years, right? That's a lot. And some scientists would say that all that happened by chance, but I think we can understand that there is a greater God out there who designed us perfectly to have hearts that can not only withstand beating that much and a muscle that can work that efficiently, but it was just designed perfectly. And we're going to learn a couple more vocab words today. We're going to look at the word pulmonary, and we're going to look at the word coronary. And we're going to look more in depth at what an artery does and how it works and what it looks like. And those are the three things that we're going to focus on today. All right. All right, so let's go back to all of our cells. And again, our cells make up every part of our body. And if every part of our body is made up of cells, we know that our cells have to have blood in order to stay alive. So all cells, even those that make up the heart, need blood. So we have arteries and veins that are, their specific jobs are to bring blood to and from certain parts of the body. But we have arteries and veins that are often named because of where they are located in the body. And the first one we're going to talk about is the word coronary here. This is the word that means relating to the heart. So notice that I have it in red, just like what we've been doing with, just like how we've been observing the different blood vessels in the body are either red or blue. All right, if we know that the coronary is red, we know that the red arteries carry blood away from the heart. So we have this network of blood vessels that supplies the heart with blood. These arteries and veins that provide blood for the heart, we call them coronary arteries and coronary veins. So let's look at the ones on the heart. We have our cardiac veins. These main ones here we have are the cardiac arteries. And again, the arteries are blood vessels that supply blood through your body. Okay, so again, coronary means relating to, where am I at? There you go. Means relating to the actual heart. All right. Then we have pulmonary. Pulmonary is a word that means relating to the lungs. Okay. The artery that goes to the lungs, right here, we call it the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary veins, they come from the lungs back to the heart. Okay. Because remember, we need a way for our blood to get oxygen when they enter the lungs, and then also to get back into the heart here. So let's talk about arteries now. This is what an artery would look like. Arteries have these thick muscular walls, and they can expand and relax as the heart pumps blood through them. When the heart contracts to squeeze blood away from the heart, it pushes blood into the arteries, and this makes the artery wall expand and stretch out. And when the heart relaxes, the walls spring back into place, and this causes all the arteries to become smaller. So the blood is pushed forward, or kind of squeezed forward, by these strong muscles in here. So think about that. When you're feeling your pulse in your neck, and every time you feel it beating, that is the artery wall expanding and contracting. So here's a quick visual for you. I have a water balloon. I'm going to see if I can do this without spilling this on myself. And it's filled with a little bit of water. And let's say that this is actually an artery. So when I take the artery, and if my hand is the muscular wall of the artery and I squeeze it, what happens to the end of the balloon, right? It expands and allows blood that's being pushed from the heart to different parts of the arteries. And when the heart relaxes, so does the artery. So as you're feeling the pulse in your neck, this is what you're feeling. It's squeezing the blood through that artery. Hope that makes sense. All right, so let's look at what we would call the aorta. This is the largest artery in the body, and you can see that it looks pretty massive in comparison to what we would normally notice in our arms or our legs. The artery, this is the largest artery in the body, and it's about the size of a garden hose. So if you go outside and you get a hose, you look at how wide it is, that's about how wide it is inside your body. And this is attached to the left ventricle of the heart, and it carries blood away from the heart. Now let me stop for a second. When we talked about the right and the left side of the heart, one thing that I forgot to tell you, because it might have been a little confusing for you, is that when we are looking at a picture of the heart, it looks like the right side is on the left and the left side is on the right. But how stuff is normally written out in medical journals, medical books, is if I was to be standing here and I'm looking down, I'm looking at the right side of my heart or the left side of my heart. And so it's as if I'm going to take that picture that's there and turn it and put it on my body. And that's how they determine right and left side. So I hope that makes sense. Okay? So again, the aorta is attached to that left ventricle down here, and it goes up through here, and it carries blood away from the heart. And you can see that the further these arteries get away from the heart, what happens to their size? That's right, it gets a little bit smaller. Okay? Now, we have these arteries that branch off the aorta, and they form these smaller arteries, like what I said. The smallest arteries, which start turning into our capillaries, we call them arterioles, okay? And you can see, remember, we need a section, that U-turn section, to get blood back to our lungs, and that happens in the capillaries. Well, these little sections right here, before it gets to this middle section of the capillaries, we call these arterioles. And this is going to be the start of that U-turn, the start of the transition from these blood vessels being arteries and then morphing into capillaries, and they morph back into veins. All right, so as a review, let's talk about this again. We learned a couple different words. We learned coronary. Coronary means that it is relating to the heart. And we have pulmonary, which means that it's relating to the lungs. And then you have arteries, again, that are those thick muscular walled blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart to the rest of the body. And then at that U-turn part where it starts to go into the capillaries, we have these really tiny blood vessels that we call arterioles, and those things basically are the start of that U-turn to get blood back to the lungs. For today's assignment, you're going to leave a comment on my webpage, and you're going to tell me again one thing that you learned that was new. Again, make sure you put your first and last name, and I miss seeing you guys, and I will see you on Thursday.